Well, welcome to Kinstretch for Hip Mobility. I'm Steve Piper at Monastery Health Collective. I'm here today with Adam Kuchar. We are going to run you through a hip series that will focus on the hip flexors, the glutes, the hip capsule, and what you'll need for today is a couple of yoga blocks, and hopefully you've received and gone through the morning routine and the tension routine that will prepare you for today's class. But just to get started, we're going to get Adam to sit in what's called a V-sit base position. So go ahead and sit on your butt. And if you find that you're not comfortable here sitting on the ground, you can always grab one of the blocks, lift up, and sit down, which creates a little bit more space in the hip joint. What's your preference, Adam?
I don't mind being on the ground.
On the ground? Okay, so we'll lift up. Okay, so now Adam's going to go and find his end range of hip space. Number one, he's going to create as much adduction or V-sit as possible, and he's using his base of support to sit up tall. You should start to feel some tension in the hip joint itself. And again, just like we've done in the morning routine and the tension routine, there needs to be an adaptation process. So the first 15 to 20 seconds, Adam's just going to maintain position in the V-sit before he starts his isometrics. With the isometric contraction, we'll do 2 rounds of that. We will ramp up tension as we go, just like we did in the tension video. And then we'll work on the progressive side. So the progressive side for Adam is going to be the bottom side of his leg. The regressive side is going to be the top. He's going to try to lengthen the bottom, shorten the top. And so why don't you just go ahead, a little bit of knee bend, so 5 degrees of knee bend on both sides. And Adam's going to start ramping up tension by digging his heel into the ground, which is going to engage the posterior side of his legs. So start to ramp up 20% effort, 40% effort. Try not to let your knees flex up when doing this. 60% effort, 80% effort. And just like we did in the tension routine, here you're going to take that deep breath in, pack the air down into your core, hold tension, push down as hard as you safely can, maximizing tension in your entire body. Hold that for 3, 2, 1. Let the tension down. He's not going to move his upper body. Now he's going to do one leg at a time, the regressive side. So here he's going to take a deep breath in. Go ahead. He's going to try to lift his entire leg off the ground. Go ahead. Hold that. 10, 9, 8. Keep squeezing. Even if you can't lift your foot off the ground, you're trying to make it light. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. You might find that you get a bit of a cramp in the quad or the hip flexor. That's okay. You come out of the position. Let the cramp subside, get right back to work, fighting for more hip space. So now you're going to do the left side, lift up, and one side is going to behave differently than the other. 10, 9, 8, 7. Fight for that space. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax back down. So now that he's gone through his first round of progressive and regressive side, he should be able to bring himself more forward, keeping his chest up. He's got more hip space in there. So now his base of supports, he can bring them more towards the front, keeping his head up and chest up. He's closed off more hip space, so he's going to run through his second round now. So start to push both legs down into the ground. 20%. 40%. You might see a little bit of shaking. That's okay. That just means he's working hard for his hip joint space. 60%. 80%. Take that deep breath in. Maximum tension, maximum safest effort, driving down into the ground on the progressive side. Push. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stay where you are. Let the tension down. And here he's going to go for the regressive side. He's going to take a deep breath in. He's going to have less space in his hip because remember we pitched him forward a bit. Take a deep breath in. Head up, chest up. Try to lift the right leg up. Squeeze and hold. 10, 9, 8. Keep squeezing. 7. Fight for space. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly bring the tension down. Take another breath in. So here's your third breath into the intra-abdominal space. Left leg. Squeeze up and hold. Try not to just straighten the knee. Try to lift the whole leg up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax back down. Good, so he's gone through 2 rounds of isometrics and a V-sit. We're gonna get Adam to back off his hip space. So he's gonna come back to the original starting position. Now we can keep a block handy. We're gonna use a block as an obstacle to do what's called a lift off. So what he's gonna do is, now that he's got more space in his hip, he's gonna have room to lift this leg up, travel over the block, slowly touch back down, and then come back up and down. You ready? Take a deep breath in. Lift up, over the block, come back down, breathe out. Take another breath in. Lift up, over the block, come back down. And with your second block, you can do that on the left side. Go ahead, lift up, over the block, come back down. Breath in. Lift up, over the block, come back down. What you want to try to avoid with this lift off is rocking back to create more space. So whatever space you have in your hip, that's what you're going to work with. So he's going to lock this into place, take that deep breath, no bend in the arm, lift up and over. Good, slowly touch back down, control yourself, lift up, good. And then the left side, no movement in the upper body. Excellent. Good. How are you doing? Want some more? Good. I'm glad you do. So that's a lift off, and he's traveling over an obstacle. Now he's going to do what's called a hover. So we have pretty much reached his neuromuscular fatigue in his hip flexor as he lifts up. We just want to make sure that he gets to maximum fatigue. So here he's going to lift up. He's going to hold his heel above the block for a 5 count as we run through this. So chest up, head up, take a deep breath in, draw up, over the block, hold 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, come back, lower down slow, breathe out. Take another breath in, pack it in, intra-abdominal pressure, left side, lift up, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, come back down. So we work through the 2 rounds of the isometrics to make sure that he has control of his hips. We've done a couple of lift-offs on each side. We've done a hover on each side. And now we're going to do a little bit more kinetic stuff, but going to the lateral part. So he's going to have to work on the lateral part of his hip. Here, we're going to make Adam travel a little wider into his V-sit by placing his block on the opposite side, on his right side. So go ahead, take a deep breath in. Lift up, over, and touch on the bottom. Come back down, control. Lift up, take a breath in, lift up, control, come back down. And I think he's doing great. So you want to challenge yourself at home. All you really need to do is make the block a bit higher, which means you have to squeeze harder at the hip flexor. And remember, try not to rock back. You're trying to maintain space there. Take a deep breath in, lift up, squeeze over, come back down. Good. Breath out. Another breath in. Lift up, over, come back down, and we'll just see what you have for today. Always challenging yourself to the end range of motion. This one's going to be hard, so try to focus your energy, try to squeeze from the hip flexor, take a deep breath in, tension up your entire body, see if you can clear the block, squeeze up, so not there yet. That's where the progressive comes in. Let's move on to the other side. Take a deep breath in, lift up, over and down. So now you can see where the progressive is starting to change. We've widened Adam's V-sit position. We've been working hard on his hip flexors. You're good with that?
Yep.
So we might as well put a little bit more challenge in there. Take a deep breath in, lift up, over, slowly control the descent, breathe out. Good, how are you doing? You okay?
Hard.
Take a deep breath in, lift up, good, over, down, good. And then let's see how he does on this side. Remember that your right and left does not have to be exactly the same. See what you got. Squeeze, 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 good. Try to control it, take another breath in, squeeze up, good, perfect. All right, so that's the V-sit position. The next thing we're gonna do is bring Adam into a figure 4 position. You can stay there. Always going to move gracefully in Kinstretch. So he's just worked so hard on his hip flexors. Now he's got control of them. He's going to lift this leg up, go ahead, fold into a figure 4 position. And now this leg is going to lift up and come into the middle. And now we see some tension in Adam's hip. Notice that his knee is off the ground. That's where your resting place is that right? Mm-hmm. So where do you feel the tension?
Right in there.
Right, so now he's got a rotational tension in his hip. We're going to try to work through that, but we're not going to give just empty space to push on. We always want to have something to create tension against so you're comfortable pushing against the block.
Yep.
So now instead of the V-sit position, now he's shortened the lever arm and he can get a bunch of different muscles, the rotational type muscles engaged. So here Adam's going to start to push down. Again, the same procedure applies, 2 rounds of isometrics. So here you're going to push this leg down into the block, ramping up tension. He's done his 15 to 20 second adaptation period. Start to push down, ramping up tension. Take a deep breath. Push down as hard as you safely can. Shaking is fine. Breathe out. And instead of lifting in a V-sit, now he's going to try to lift his whole leg up to his chest. Take a deep breath in. Try to squeeze up, squeeze and hold. Good, hold that, 10. Good, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Slowly relax back down. So now he's probably given himself more hip space. So let's find out. Go ahead and lower this down. Just let it go to. So now you see that's even lower than what he started with. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right? He's not low enough to the ground where he can just use the ground. So we're going to keep the block there. Just move it out a little bit so he can get a little bit lower. Second round of isometrics. Go ahead. Start to create your contraction, pushing down into the block or the ground. If you're at home and your knee touches the ground in this position, just push into the ground. 40% effort, 60% effort, 80%. Take a deep breath in. Pushing down as hard as you safely can. Work for more joint space. You have to fight for that space. Breathe out. Second breath in, draw it into your abdominals. Intra-abdominal pressure increases. Breath in, squeeze up and hold. Good. Hold 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax back down. And here we see Adam's hip joint getting more and more space as we work through this. So 2 rounds of isometrics. And now he's going to be able to gracefully control his lift off. And he's going to bring this leg forward and then lift off on the left side, bring it back into a figure 4 position on the other side. So lift up, come straight out. Good. And then lift up, bring it into a figure 4. And again, if you've noticed at home when you're watching this, Adam's left hip seems to behave differently than his right hip, which is totally fine. He's just got different joint space over there, different connective tissue, different stuff that he can work with. Make sense? So he's almost touching the ground on this side. So we might just put a block just on the edge so that he can create tension into that space. You're comfortable there?
Yep.
Head up, chest up. And here, because this left hip behaves differently, we might actually close off a little bit of space by pitching forward. Or if you're comfortable at home sitting in this space, you've got lots of hip space on this side, you can always bring your base of supports off the ground, making fists on both sides, sitting up tall. And now he's got no base of support. He has to rely strictly on his hip. Did you see his hip come up and now there's space in there? So he's probably not ready for that, but if your knee doesn't move when you move your base of supports, go ahead, feel free to keep your hands in the air. Start to push down, 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%. Take that deep breath in. Push down as hard as you safely can. Push. Good. Take another breath in, letting all the tension go. Second breath in, trying to squeeze the entire leg up. Try not to favor too much of the knee coming into center line. You can see he's got really good control of his left hip, squeezing 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax back down. And here we'll see now he's got full control of that hip. He's almost at the ground. We can solve that with our second round of isometrics. How are you doing? You okay? Yeah. So chest up, shoulders back. The reason why I keep saying chest up, head up is a nice line of tension. Does it matter if your head is down? No, but you can generate more force if you're stacking tension. Start to push down, 20%, 40%, amping up, 60%, 80%. Deep breath in. Push down as hard as you safely can. Push. Hold that tension, fighting for joint space. Breathe out. Let the tension down. Take another breath in. Here you're going to fight to get more on the regressive side. Squeeze up and hold. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax back down. Good. So now he's done the V-sit position. He's done a figure 4 base position. And here we can start to play around with some of the kinetics. So the kinetic part would be, keep your base of supports there. He can lift his left leg up, travel into a V-sit position. Go ahead, take a deep breath in. Lift up, travel into a V-sit position. Bring this leg further out into a V-sit position. Good, and then he can lift his left leg up, travel back into figure 4. Good, lift up, travel back into V-sit. Good, always creating tension before you lift the other side. Go ahead, lift up the right side and travel back into figure 4. You see the difference in control of the right versus left hip. And just because Adam's doing such a great job, what we'll do is we'll give him a bit of an obstacle to travel over, and we can make his left side challenge higher than his right side challenge because we know that he's got more space on his left side. So go ahead and lift up over the obstacle into a V-sit position. Good. And now into the figure 4, left side. Good. And we might even challenge Adam to work harder there. Go back into your V-sit. So when you're at home doing this, don't be afraid to move the blocks around in whatever way challenges you the most. We're going to run through, I think we've done it through 4 now with obstacles. Lift up. Come back into a figure 4. Good. Release tension. Pack the area in a second time. Lift up. Come back over. Good, and then we might move this even closer and challenge that left hip a little bit. Lift up, come in, good. Try not to rock back, down, good. Head up, chest up, squeeze, 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 squeeze. Perfect. So did you see the challenge that he created for himself? Before he lifted up, he stacked himself up, closing off space in his hip joint. He really had to work hard to get his left hip over, but we can definitely see that his left hip has better control than his right hip, which is fine. Just gives you something to work on. For the next series, we'll move Adam into what's called a 90-90, and we'll just get you started facing the camera. Good. And so with the 90-90, the important here is that we're moving deeper into the tissue. The first series, we focused more on the superficial tissue, which would be your hip flexors, adductors, the lateral muscle. When you go into the 90-90, you're going to have a deeper sensation because it's deeper tissue. What we're after is the capsule of the joint. So really important to get the capsule of the joint. The front leg needs to be at 90 degrees, and that's why it's always nice to have a mat here that you can focus on the 90. The back leg is going to come back far enough and also be in the 90-90, and I think it's a nice cue to use the shirt line to line up with your short line to be a straight line behind, and then this back knee is at 90 degrees. And remember that Adam's right hip behaves differently than his left, so he's going to go and try to find space in his right hip, sitting up tall, walking hands forward, closing off space in the front of his right hip until he starts to feel a little bit of pressure come into the deep part of the hip. I think the facial expression says it all. So there is the capsular part of the hip. You'll know when you get on it because it feels different than muscle tissue. And his correction is going to be trying to lift up again, creating that tension. Imagine that you're trying to pick up your pelvis and lift it up towards the ceiling in a bit of a pelvic tilt, and that will generate more tension along the lateral part of the hip. You good there? Yep. So again, we'll start off with 2 rounds of isometrics, and then we'll get into the kinetic part. So from here, this front leg, we're going to start to drive tension down into the ground, pushing down. And we might as well include the back leg instead of doing nothing back there. So both legs are going to push down. You're going to gas pedal down into the ground. 20% effort, 40% effort, 60% effort, 80%. And with this, when we're working on the capsule, there should be no pinch points. It just feel deep pressure. Take a deep breath. Push down as hard as you safely can. Push. Breathe out. Now he's already trained himself in the figure 4 position to try to lift the whole leg up. So instead of just lifting the knee up to his chest, he's going to try to lift this whole shin. Take a deep breath in. Squeeze up the regressive side. Your squeeze hold 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release the tension, stay where you are. Keep that joint space that you just worked so hard for. In fact, you should have a little bit more joint space, so keeping that upright position, he's going to fold forward from the waist. So go get more joint space, walking your hands further out. Good, and then self-correct by bringing your chest up, lifting that pelvis up towards the ceiling. In the second series of this, Adam will be facing towards me, and we'll be able to see a little bit more of that pelvic tilt situation. You okay there? Yep. Start your second round of isometrics, pushing down, 20% effort, 40%. Remember, no pinch point, just deep tissue, deep capsular tissue, 60% effort. Good, 80%. Take a deep breath. Push down as hard as you safely can. Slowly relax. And here, as a feedback tool, Adam might actually put his hand on his ankle and try to squeeze his ankle up into his hand as a feedback cue. So go ahead, take a deep breath in. Try to lift your ankle off the ground, fighting your own hand, feeling it in the hip. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. Good. And then just bring your hand back onto the ground. Notice his joint space, how much of this angle he's closed off with those first two isometric rounds. And if we're going to introduce a little bit of kinetic part, here we can apply the figure 4 position and the V-sit to what we've been doing all along. Adam's just going to move his hand out of the way. He's going to back off his joint space because we know he probably doesn't have a lot of movement there. And here he's going to lift his whole leg up. He's going to bring his leg forward and touch down slowly. Take a deep breath in. Lift out. Rotate as far as you can. Yeah, don't cheat. Go only to where you can manage the control. And then take a deep breath in. Lift up. Fold in. Good. And I think what you'll see is when we switch over to the left side, he's got more clearance, more control. Take a deep breath in. Lift up. Straighten. Good. Try to control. Come back down. And you can see he's missing about 30 degrees of movement there. Lift up, which isn't a problem. That's just where his hip space is. That's what he owns. One more time. Lift up. Chest up. Head up. Good. Hold that tension. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Fight for hip space. Good. Lower down. Breath in. Lift up. Come back in. Good. And then relax. Now, for the camera's sake, we're going to turn Adam towards me so that you can get a side view, but we're going to switch Adam up to a left 90-90, so his left side's going to be facing forward. Why don't you go ahead and turn towards me? Good. Again, using the mat. Here you're going to get a better view of what his lateral hip is doing when he's in the 90-90 position. And nice that we're using his left side because we know for certain that his left hip behaves differently than his right. You're comfortable in that position? Yep. So why don't you start to walk yourself forward with your hands bending from the hip, closing off space. And here you can see what he's trying to achieve when I say sit up tall, head up, chest up. He's creating a line of tension that leads down to the back part of his hip. And here is where the pelvic tilt comes in, almost like somebody's picking you up. That will generate the end range space and create a lot of tension or the stretch sensation in the back leg. And here Adam's sitting nice and tall. You can definitely see the difference between his left and his right. Start to push down, amping up tension. 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%. Take that deep breath in. Tension everything in your body as you push down as hard as you safely can. Push. Breathing out, letting the tension go. Take another breath in. He's going to try to close off space by lifting the leg up towards the chest. It's not just the knee rotating in towards the chest. You're squeezing the whole leg. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly bring the tension down. He's going to go and get more joint space that he works so hard for. So walk forward. Good. So you're feeling that deep pressure on the capsule. Good. And then once you've accommodated to the new position, you can start your second round of isometrics. Now, for Adam on the left side, I might be confident enough to say that Adam now has that joint space on the left side where he no longer needs his bases of support. So as he starts to generate tension into the ground, go ahead, start to push down 20%. He can actually support himself on his left hip, bringing his arms up, head up, chest up, 40%, make fists, 60%. It's hard work, fighting for that joint space, fight, 80%. Take a deep breath in. Head up, chest up, push down as hard as you safely can. If you lose tension here, you can always put your base of supports back down to the ground. Breathe out. Good. And then try to squeeze up and hold. Good. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. There's just 2 rounds of isometrics. So you're going to back off the hip. Give yourself a little bit of space in the hip. And here we're going to do the kinetic part where we combine the lift off and rotation. So keep your base of supports nice and firm. Head up, chest up, take a deep breath. Lift the left leg up, straighten out in front of you. Good. You might need a little bit more clearance than that. Good, hold that there. Focus the tension again. Lift up, curl back in, slowly under control. So you see what he did there? He backed off his hip space by sitting more up, which is good self-cueing. He's only using what he owns, trying to get more hip space. You could see him fighting for more hip space, but he's dragging his foot along the ground. Doesn't actually own that space yet. Take another breath in. Lift up, hold tension. Now he's got much smoother control of that. Breathe out. Another breath in. Good, come back in. Good. One more, lift up. Out, control it. Good. Slowly lower down, lift up, come back in. Good, so there is the 90-90, focusing mainly on the front hip capsule. What we're going to do now is bring Adam into what's called a frog position. So he's going to be in a quadruped, so come on into a quadruped. And here we'll just finish off in frog position. So he's going to extend both of his knees out past the mat, and his ankles are going to rotate so that he's externally rotated at the hip. And you can come down on your forearms onto the mat. Good, and so he's in a frog position. We're just gonna try to keep working on the capsule, moving his leg out into a 90 position. Good, so now he's sitting in the 90 degrees, still sitting on the capsule. Try to flatten your back out. And then he's gonna go and fight for a little bit of hip space as he pushes into the end range. Very slowly, he's gonna sink that way until he has no more hip space. And we can't see the look on his face right now, but I can imagine what that feels like. Good, so he's maximally externally rotated. He's sitting deep tissue capsule. He needs time for his body to accommodate to a position. You're okay there?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna feel like tension. It's gonna feel like stress and tension inside your hip. And now that he's accommodated, he's gonna start to drive tension, pushing his leg, the inner part of his thigh, down into the ground. As you start that contraction, you will feel less of that deep capsular pain because your muscle tissue is actually pulling your femur into a better hip space. Is that correct?
Yeah.
40% effort, 60% effort. I can't promise you about the regressive side. 80% effort. Take a deep breath in. Squeeze into the ground, drawing your knees in. Breathe out, and here he's going to internally rotate his hip. By not allowing his torso to move, he's going to take a deep breath in, and then he's going to lift both of his ankles off the ground as he internally rotates the hip. Go ahead, hold 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax back down. And you'll notice now that he's got a little bit more hip space that he can sink into. You okay there?
Yeah.
So he's going to go fight for that space again, which isn't going to be comfortable, but he definitely gained a lot of range in his hip. So start to drive, once you accommodate to the position, start to drive down again with the knees into the ground. 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%. Take that deep breath in, squeeze in. You're stretching the progressive side, which is the groin, the adductor, breathe out, and the rotators. Here, he's going to take another breath in. He's going to shorten the internal rotators by trying to lift his ankles off the ground. This is rotation coming from the hip, not just his knee. Hold. Good. Hold, hold. Fight for space. Do what you can. And then slowly relax. Good. You carefully walk yourself out of frog position and come into a kneeling stance here. Yeah, and then you can just face the camera. How's that?
That's hard.
It's supposed to be hard, but you could feel the difference between when you did your isometrics and the kinetic movement. You're just always trying to create more space, and to create hip joint space requires you to fight for that extra end range, even if it's 2 degrees. So that is Kinstretch for hip mobility. Thank you, Adam, for being a willing participant today. And any questions, get in touch with me, Steve Piper, if you have any questions about in terms of what you should or shouldn't be doing for your hip capsule. But that concludes Kinstretch for hip mobility. Thank you.